Crypto Minute Runners, welcome back. We are here again with a very, very again with our very lucky guest, Mr. Mark. Mark is the CEO of Charisma, and he is actually in Barcelona, which is one of the cities I've always wanted to visit, and I hopefully will
I'm waiting
one
for you
day
here.
soon. One day soon, yes. Mark, welcome. I just like to state and just remind everybody before we get going that this interview is brought to you by Meta Marketing International. Mark, thank you for your time today.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. I would consider myself more of founder than CEO. I mean, at the moment, it's pretty much a one-man show with some people helping and stuff like that. So I don't think I've got to the point where like I've started assigning these roles. So at the moment,
Yes.
it's just doing a little bit of pretty much everything.
So
But
you're the
it's not
one
too
man
long.
gang. You're the
Yeah,
one
exactly.
man gang.
Yeah. Woo!
Amazing. I love it. So before we get started into the good stuff, I'd like to ask you a few questions, maybe like get to know you a little bit for the people out there, a little bit of your background. Where were you born? We already know Barcelona, but how was your childhood? Big family, small family, and what was your life up until your high school times?
Thank you for asking. And I think I had a very lucky childhood, to be honest. I was born into a half German, half Catalan family. From the very beginning, I spoke three languages: German, Spanish, and Catalan. Um,
Amazing.
I have one brother. He's 2 years younger. One sister. She's 6 years younger. So I kind of like was always taking the lead in the family, and I went to the German school in Barcelona. So like from the very beginning, I was already very exposed to like many different cultures, many different ways of being, and so that really got me very curious to kind of explore more cultures, lifestyles, and always just having people at the center of my curiosity to some extent. And without really knowing that, I think that really kind of shaped my path, the things I went on to look for in life, and my current path at the moment.
Amazing. Wow. That's very, very interesting. I have a quick question for you. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, how did that experience of growing up right away with many different cultures and languages and so forth, how did that affect your life long term?
I would say like one of the qualities that I think is becoming more and more and more important is emotional intelligence, right? Before it was always like about the IQ, and more people are talking about the EQ, the emotional Q, whatever the whatever that
Yes,
is.
yes,
Um,
yes.
and so I think when you can relate and empathize with many different cultures, different ways of being, I think that cultural competence translates towards that empathy, that emotional intelligence that really allows you to connect with people on a much deeper level, right? And so I think so much transformation happens because of the people we surround ourselves with, right? There's the big saying of you're the average of the five people you surround yourself with.
Indeed,
And
yes.
so when you have that superpower of being able to empathize with people, to connect with them on a much deeper level, there you squeeze the orange so much more and can get to such a deeper level, which brings you so many new perspectives, insights, knowledge. Um, and I think that really has been what has made me into the person I am today. And a little bit more about myself. Maybe that was going to be the next question, but I grew up in Barcelona my whole life. My parents motivated me to do a study abroad program for 1 year in the U.S. when I was 15, 10th grade. I met there
Awesome.
the love of my life, at least at the time. We're not together anymore. But I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to the last 2 years of high school back to Barcelona and I
Yeah.
want to reconnect with her. And so when I, that motivated me to go on to study in the US.
Awesome.
And,
Wow.
and you
That's
know,
cool.
because it was so expensive, I was like, okay, I need to find a way to really start saving some money here. And so what I did was I graduated in 3.5 years instead of 4. But instead of graduating early, I decided to graduate with everybody else, leaving me with a gap of 6 months in which I could do whatever I really wanted. And I always wanted just to keep on meeting new cultures, travel. So I decided to spend the first 3 months in Brazil and the other 3 months in Australia. Um, and during that period, I think that was really the time in which I grew the most. It was the most transformational time
Hmm.
in my short life at the time. And it
Yeah.
wasn't because of that nice beach, that nice temple, and all these different things. It was really because of the people I had met along that journey. And the beautiful part of that is that there was kind of this exchange, sometimes like subconscious exchange of value of information. You share your experiences, I share mine. You get exposed to different ways, to the entire spectrum of opinions, of perspectives, and then
Yeah.
you kind of start picking, the things that you truly like and stuff like that. um and I think that was really, all the previous experiences kind of led me to that point. But it was really living that experience that kind of give me a glimpse of what life really could be like. It clarified clearly that I wanted to do something that involved, meeting people, something with community at the core. And so that then kind of got the wheels turning, and leading eventually to me founding my co-living company, Charisma.
Amazing. Wow. So you definitely had some worldly experiences. I know for a fact that when you go to a different country, you really get to see the real world. And a lot of people will say that living, for example, in a in a first world country or a well-off economy country, some people would say once they go to a different country and experience some of the things that I'm sure you experience in different ways, um, they would say that they would be feel maybe sheltered, saying, for example, I've had it so good compared to some of the rest of the parts in the world. um, and I know that that connection with other people when you go to a different country, how did that specifically change your thinking, for example, of because with meeting people you do learn a lot of skills, um, like for example, like that you use right now, so like people skills, conversation, gauging people, learning how to deal with different types of people. How was that for you?
I think traveling is the best school you can possibly have. I think multiple reasons. The very first thing I think is you grow on every single situation. You grow just a little bit. Suddenly you have
Yes.
to find a place to eat. Oh, I find meet some new people. Oh, where do I do my groceries? Oh, I have to cook for myself. It's like these tiny little things, that if you look at it over time, it just really starts compounding, right? I think many times, people are really focused on just growing, and they get stuck because they're like, wow, like there's still so much space between here and there. But with
Yeah.
traveling, it's like month has passed, maybe even, like, which is not that much time. It's like, wow, like I'm a new person. I have a different perspective. That's kind of what happened to me the first time I was there in Boston. I was just fucking around, like just not really doing much, but just being there by myself in this totally new country, and like
Yeah.
having to move around made me much more responsible and all these different things. Another
True.
great thing I love about traveling is that, you know, we are really kind of carried by this collective force momentum to some extent, right?
Hmm.
When you're back at home, you have your group of friends, and the group of friends as a collective is like, okay, let's go out this weekend. Next weekend, oh, let's go out this weekend. And
Right.
it's there's no room for like independent thinking sometimes, because you're like, I don't want to be the odd one out,
Yes,
right? This
yes,
is
yes.
something we can get into deeper a little bit later, but so many of the decisions we make are based and deeply rooted in us wanting to have that sense of belonging to some extent, right? That's a natural thing of us humans. And so suddenly when you're in this new place, you're like, what do I want to do? We're like, what am I into? Not what does the other people expect of me, or what is the thing that everybody that I know does do. And at the same time, you're starting to meet people, and you're like, if I don't like this person, I'm not going to spend more time with this person. And you
Right.
really start like connecting with those different people. One of the biggest lessons I also had at the time was never judge a book by its cover. It got like that lesson got just repeated
Oh yes.
time again.
Oh
Like
yes.
when I
Yeah.
was in Australia, like I met like these hippies, and at first I was like, what the fuck? Like, you know, okay. But I learned so much from them. I learned gratitude from them. I learned, like to appreciate the little things. Then from this other person, you learn this and that. And I think, when you're always inside of your bubble, like you're never gonna be able to unlock your full potential. I genuinely believe. I think you need to get, slapped in the face. I think you need to be exposed to different ways of being, different ways of thinking, to then build your own persona, and pick the things that you like about these different things. Otherwise, you're just pretty much a robot, you know. And I mean, this is so common, and we're all influenced by what we consume and all these different things. But we think we have this free will and like this free way of thinking, but so often we're just like the messenger of the wider media that we consume, and or
Yes.
of the environment we really live in. So I think travel is it's one of the most transformative experiences you can have. Period.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you said that because it's so true. Like I've experienced it myself coming from another country to Canada to live. So yeah, I definitely know what you're talking about. Feeling that little bit of like, oh man, what am I gonna do in this gigantic city all alone? But then you take a day, step by step, you think figure things out. These experiences build up your levels. They build up your levels. And I truly think that they guide you in a way where you're supposed to go. Um,
I
and
agree. And actually adding something here. So
mhm,
for anyone who's watching this on video, like I I would say I'm extremely privileged. Like I've been born into the wealthy neighborhood here in Barcelona. My parents do really good for themselves. I have someone who works here at home and everything, right? And it's so easy just to stay kind of in that comfort zone, right? Like we
right,
really
in the
are
bubble.
privileged, very,
Yeah.
very privileged. So many of us. And I think it's so easy just to stay comfortable. It's like, oh, it just works. Like I don't have to worry about all these different things. And that's why I like stoicism, and these ways of thinking of like, just like take risks, like do something different, step out of your comfort zone. And I forgot who said it, but I heard it again recently. It's like, pressure makes diamonds, or something along those lines. And you
Yes.
need to um go through these moments to then be able to appreciate the privilege that you have, and the amazing life you have, right? I mean, I after college, I moved out. I went to the US. I lived in Brazil, Australia, then went on to live in Ireland and Portugal, like many different places. It was amazing. And now, like 3 months ago, I just moved back home,
Yes.
uh, because I'm fully bootstrapping my business. I am, I just want to focus 100% on this. I'm also building in Barcelona. That's a huge reason for that as well. But I'm just saving a lot of time to some extent. But I've come back here, and I've fallen fallen back in love with Barcelona and really, really now appreciated all the things that I had, which I never appreciated in the first place.
Right. Yes, yes, yes. That is uh that is called growth. That is called maturity. That is called coming into your own, right? That is called um seeing the world as and appreciating it as the way it is now, in the moment, now, right? We gotta appreciate what we have, and we gotta appreciate what we have now. That's an amazing message for anybody that's listening. You're very correct there, Mark. Now I'd like to get into, I know that, so you obviously your travels were, I'm gonna guess, probably a big motivation for for your project that you're working on right now, which is, I'm gonna guess, um definitely a passion project as well as a business entrepreneur project. Am I correct on that?
I'm like extremely blessed because I've not only found a business that's, has a lot of potential, but also one that is 100% aligned with my view of the world, with how I want, my own lifestyle to be. It's really a reflection of my own values, of my own philosophy, and the lifestyle I'd love to live for myself.
Yes,
So
I mean, awesome. That's so cool. I see more and more uh, young people finding their own way faster and faster in life
yeah,
nowadays. We definitely have more information at our hands and so forth. Um, I'd like to know for you, what was the exact moment where this idea came into your mind? What was the exact moment and motivation or situation that made you create this beautiful charisma in your head?
thank you. I'm kind of like, just a little side note, I'm like totally mind blown. Actually, today is the 14th. The crazy thing is that the idea for charisma, I'm not even joking, like was born today, 2 years ago. Like
Wow.
today. Well, it was the night of the 13th, and then like it was around like 1 a.m., like 2 a.m. or something like that. And so, I put in so much work into it, and now just even being interviewed here and like you even saying the name is like still so mind blowing to me. But I would say like, and it still connects on with all the other stories I've kind of talked about. I came back from Australia in the Southeast Asia trip. I remember my dad picked me up. I was still in college at the time, and my dad wanted me to be like, that's what he recommended, heavily recommended. Um, Mark, you need to be a consultant, you need to gain experience, you need to do all this, blah, 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 blah. And I remember like being in Australia and like kind of, having that pressure of I need to get into consulting, like doing all these case studies, which I hated. I
Hmm.
came back from Australia, he picked me up, and I'm like, that I have no idea what I want to do or what my future is going to look like, but I either want to take a sabbatical after college, become a freelancer, uh, or start a business. And my dad was like, "You got to be kidding me! Like we have not just paid all this expensive tuition
Oh
for you
man.
to just like now just not do
Yeah.
anything,
Oh
right? And
boy.
like, come on,
And
like
very,
you don't."
very understandable though,
Yeah,
from a father's or from a father perspective. It's probably very understandable,
of course,
that
hundred
question,
percent.
right? How do you answer that?
And I was like, it's one of those arguments that you just can't win. It's like you're just like they're you know kind of
Yeah.
dumb, like. But the thing is, that was the moment the seed was planted. I
Right.
already had an understanding of what my ideal lifestyle would be and what I wanted for myself, right? I wanted to
Yes.
keep traveling. I wanted to keep on meeting exciting people. I wanted to keep on growing, right? And even though that's still very, very vague, it's dramatically reduces the spectrum of options that you have, right? And I think there's a big I don't know if to call it a mistake or whatever, but so often I feel like some people have stuff figured out because we have so much access to information, all these different things. But I would argue that the majority of people are absolutely lost. And I think a lot of it is because we are approaching, the pursuing of how to find the path and stuff like that in the
Yeah.
wrong way. It's
Yeah.
like,
I agree.
if you wanted to go to X destination, right? Like in your case, you want to go to, um, I don't know, just the neighborhood next door.
Right.
You take a car because that's the vehicle that's going to take you best to that destination,
Hmm.
right? You're not going to take a plane. And I feel like so often in university or society, it tells you, what do you want? The plane, the car, the scooter, the motorcycle? I was like, well, it depends on where you want to go, right? Like
Right.
in my
Yeah.
case, I knew my destination was something with travel, people, and growth. These three things. Then maybe being a lawyer doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean?
Of
So,
course.
having that understanding already kind of got my wheels turning. And, over time, I was kind of like reducing it to some extent, like on what that would be. I had like some first hypothesis. I think it's, even if it's not the final idea, it's good to start thinking about some potential things. And actually, on that October 13th, it's not like that the idea of the co-living was born, but
Hmm.
rather I was sitting with a friend having a late night deep conversation, and we reached the conclusion that, Mark, just pick something. I at the time I also included that I liked something with real estate because I loved architecture. So I was like, okay, that has already reduced the spectrum so much. Just pick something here and see where it takes you. Even if you go in the wrong direction, it's still going to provide you with valuable feedback that's going to tell you the things you don't like, which is already like reducing the search even more so. And so I decided to start digging into the idea of doing a surf camp made out of shipping containers in Portugal. That was like,
Wow.
let's see where this takes me.
Right.
Uh, so like I started like reaching out to everybody in the surfing industry, like talking to surf schools, surf instructors, everything. And I was working remotely at the time in Dublin, which is where the idea was born. I was living there with two incredible human beings. Like these people have shaped me so much. Um, and eventually I was like, wow, with remote work, what if we put an office in the surf camp so people can stay there longer and also work from there and all these different things? And suddenly, like, just by asking yourself these questions, suddenly I came across co-living and I was like, wow, like this, this is it.
Hmm.
This it like there's like I found it. I found it. And the crazy thing is that, oh, like it may seem like, oh, you have found it, but even within the co-living niche, which is now super way more specific, I've pivoted so many times
Yeah.
within that specific thing.
Right.
So I would say like early on, getting out of my comfort zone, like getting exposed to different perspectives, already kind of helped me understand what are the things that I like, the things that excite me, the kind of lives I'd love to have.
Hmm.
And then, I think a lot of people are waiting to take action until they figure it out. But I would argue that it's the opposite. It's take action and then you figure it out.
Yeah. 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 Definitely. That's one of the hardest things to learn in life, right? It takes a lot. Most people don't figure that out until later on in life. So good job on that, because it takes that type of perspective to get ahead into the onto the next level, which you're obviously doing. So congratulations on that. And on the other point that you mentioned, I just like to say, don't feel bad, because I see it all the time, and I've seen it all the time, where people go to university, go to school for years, and they end up not doing anything closely related to what they went to school for.
Seriously.
You know what I
Like,
mean? It's a big issue.
and I just think maybe there's more of a controversial point, but I think we're just kind of, these horses, they have these things on the side just to focus on the things they have
Yes.
ahead of.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what, I don't know who to blame, if it's society, the educational system, or whatever, but it's like, what do you want to be, a lawyer? Do you want to be a businessman? Do you want to do this or that? But like, there's so many things around it. Like,
Yeah.
if
Yeah. Yeah.
you just all looked forward, like there would be no people accelerating the whole Web3 movement.
That's right.
We just look forward, there'll be no barely any innovation, like, and yeah.
Yeah,
So
no, no, definitely, definitely. It's like a cookie cutter system, right?
yeah,
You got your frame, you cut your cookies. Every cookie frame is the same. We fit into a box.
yeah,
Unfortunately,
and
I
it's,
mean, it is a system that's. I mean, it's a needed system for
of course.
basics, but it's got to be balanced, right? There's no balance. It's always one sided, which is kind of what you're trying to say, and it's a very good point.
And I
Um,
so a lot of it is what I said earlier of like just following the collective, this, deeply rooted in that wanting to belong, kind of, that, you know, and this is closely related to the philosophy of charisma, and we'll get into that. Um, but having that feeling of, well, my biggest fear in life is just I don't know, like without any consciousness, awareness, just going forward without, and following kind of the collective to some extent, and then getting to 40, 50, 60, looking back and thinking, what the hell have I done with my life? Like, I
yeah.
never in any point asked myself, what is it that I want for myself? You know, like
Hmm.
regret, I think, is probably my biggest fear in life. Um, and and yeah, I think that's why, getting out of that bubble is such an essential thing to do.
That's awesome. It's very true. Um, you touched on something there. You said Web3. Now, when did you first learn about Web3, and how does it tie in to charisma in any way?
Cool. So I think we have to touch on two things here. One is the story of Web3, and the other one also dig a little deeper on what is co-living, because I'm sure there's probably some people that are like, what the
Yeah,
hell
that's exactly where I was going actually with that, because that is exactly
which one should I start with?
you know what? Start with the co-living. What exactly is co-living? Because this is exactly where your idea sparked from,
Yeah,
which is what we were speaking with, and then tie it into how Web3 came into that
100%.
zone.
Yeah. So co-living is a flexible form of accommodation that's based in community. It allows people to live and work wherever they desire and with whomever they desire. That's the definition I always like to give. And so it started a lot with, being a solution to foster affordable housing, because you bring like more people into one specific space. And so that was like the earliest iterations of co-living. And that's why there's misunderstandings, because that may have been the original idea at the very beginning, but it kind of went through this transition. um, and there's four pillars. I'm going a little in depth here, into
Yeah, yeah.
co-living.
We got we got time. We got time. Go for it.
So there's like four pillars with co-living, and you don't need to have all of these, but I would say like kind of everyone kind of picks and chooses the degree of each of them as they prefer. There's affordability, right, which is just bringing more people into one specific space, which is no longer the case so much nowadays, because co-livings are actually not that cheap. And the reason for that is because on one side, the second and the third pillar are really meeting the demands of today's residents or people are looking for accommodation, which are flexibility,
Mhm.
right? With remote work, people are now like traveling the world. They no longer go to Barcelona for a weekend or a long weekend, begging the boss if they can, take 1 or 2 days off. Now people
Yes.
come here for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and most of the time, people just book a one-way flight and don't even know, and just literally go with the flow. So, you
Wow.
know, getting an Airbnb is like, it's not flexible. It is flexible, but it's too expensive because you pay a nightly rate. Even though now Airbnb is kind of adapting a little bit, You
Hmm.
can also, get a long-term lease, but then you're stuck there and it sucks, right? So that's one thing. Then the third thing is the convenience, right? Like when I went to live in to Dublin in Ireland, I had to like, get the silverware, like get so many of like the things that the house needs.
Right.
I moved out after 11 months, went to Portugal without really knowing how long I was going to stay there. And suddenly I had to like purchase everything again.
Mm.
And I ended up just buying the cheapest stuff because I had no idea how long I was going to be there. So
Yeah.
co-living like is a kind of like a like plug and play kind of place. That's
Right.
it. That's why it falls within the category of space as a service. You pay a monthly bill, and included are the utilities, all the furniture. Most of the time, it's like really nice design. You can come and stay for however much like time you like, and all these different things. But I would say the reason why I think it's moving away from affordability, towards actually something more expensive, it's not just because of these two things, flexibility and convenience, which is very convenient.
Right.
It's something that people need and want nowadays. But I think the most important one is the fourth pillar, which is community, right? And so some co-livings are just basically just shared living. It's just random, just people living with each other, and they
Right.
call it community. And it is community to some extent, but it's more a circumstantial community. It's like being assigned to a class back in school, like that's your community. It's just the
Yes.
people
Yes. I
you're
see.
with, right?
Yes. Yes. I,
But
I
the
understand that.
interesting thing is that there's co-livings that are very specific with their communities, right? We have co-livings that are for entrepreneurs. We have co-livings that are just for digital nomads. We have like co-livings that are for surfers, for Web3. Like there's very specific kinds of communities.
Hmm.
And so when I was embarking on my journey and fell in love with the idea of co-living, I was like, well, I can build the community I want for myself. Like that is amazing. And that got me thinking. That's why I think there's a big reflection of who I am and like with charisma and everything, because it got me thinking like, who am I and what kind of people do I want to be surrounded with? And
Hmm.
so I didn't want to limit it just to entrepreneurs, just to surfers, just to X, Y, or Z, but
Right.
instead really have a lot of diversity, which I think is incredibly valuable, but instead have like a shared philosophy. And I've already given some hints about the philosophy and all these different things, but it's really that fear of regret, making the people in my community take action, take ownership over the one life they have to pursue something that's truly, aligned with their beliefs, their values. It's people who, you know, pursue their true calling slash passion, whether it's the entrepreneur, it's the artist, the content creator, you know, we
Yes.
have one life. And so my mission with charisma is to inspire and empower people to live the life of their dreams. A huge part of it is what you do for a living, because it's a huge part of your life. Like
Yes.
this is not a community for people that live for the weekend, right? But who
Hmm.
take, yeah, yeah, make the
Yeah.
most of
Yeah.
it. People who
Of
want to
course.
have amazing, memorable experiences, and be in their deathbed one day and look back and be like, holy mother, like
Yes.
what a ride this has been.
Yeah. 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 Well, that's so cool, and you're so right. Because it's not it's not just for one type of person or one type of lifestyle anymore. Because again, with the whole situation that happened the last few years, where everybody was shut down, nobody could do nothing, and remote working just became a regular thing, which now even still people are still remote working, and companies are okay with that. This is the perfect situation for co-living, because somebody can completely go, like, I have friends here, for example, here in Canada, that are working from home. They could easily now, could never do before, go to Barcelona,
Yeah,
go finish their work online, and go hang out at the beach, and go, like, there's so much more opportunities now. And I guess this is kind of where Web3 comes in for you as well.
yeah. I like to even add one thing before we go into Web3.
Yeah, of
I think
course.
it's really going to tie into it and really reinforce the reason why I think Web3 is so powerful. So I think there's four big trends that are making us really like they're making, I think we're in the community revolution. Everybody's talking about community, right? And I think there's multiple reasons leading up to that point. You mentioned one, remote life, right? This maybe applies more so to co-living, but people are now traveling the world and they want to come to a place and automatically know people. Cool. A second one is the loneliness epidemic we live in nowadays, right? Like people are
Hmm.
lonely. Like
Yes.
people, especially millennials, Gen Zs, have never been so depressed, anxious. Like we're like, it's a fact that Gen Z is the most depressed generation there's ever been. Period.
Wow. Wow.
It's it's insane. It's insane.
Yeah.
That third, now we live in this globalized society with the internet and all these different things, and it's kind of what we mentioned earlier as well. It's allowing us to really connect with like-minded people, right? The people we really kind of associate with in a
Yeah.
borderless way. But the most interesting one of all, and this is one like that's very fresh off the oven, this is something I've been really thinking about recently, is that for millennia we had kind of our value systems, right? Like we had religion, we had our nationality, which was a huge part of our identity, right?
Yes. Yes.
But it kept us kind of sane, it just like and now with through the globalization, the access to information, so many different points of view, we're kind of like creating our own identity. But you know these value systems took such a long time to create, and now we're here with so many different things to compare, trying to create our own identity from scratch. And we cannot even pick a damn Netflix movie because there's so many options. So how are we going to decide who we really are?
Hmm.
And so I think, I think these online communities, Web3 communities, I think brands, especially a lot of brands, influencers, and creators are now kind of taking the role of providing people with that sense of belonging and that sort of identity to some extent, that community that people really crave. Because at the end of the day, we've said this a million times now, so much of what we do is in a deeply rooted in a desire to belong at the end of the day, right?
Yes.
That is why community is becoming this huge word. Everybody's talking about community. And so I think this is one huge argument on why I'm extremely bullish on co-living on one side,
Hmm.
but also another argument on why Web3 is something that's really going to benefit from all of this. And so, to tell you a little bit about my story with crypto, Web3, and everything, I've always just been a very curious person. Back in 2017, I the FOMO got the best of me, and I got into, like the last 2 weeks of the bull run. I jumped in, tripled my money, and then it all went to shit. I was like, I'm never touching this again in my life.
Hey, was that 27 December 2017?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? We got in at around the same time. So I
Yeah,
I feel you, brother. I feel you, man. You know?
100%.
Yeah. We learned the hard way with the nice 2018 dump, right?
You can be like, oh, what a failure, but it's a good experience, So,
Did you
so
hold or did you
I
sell?
mean, I honestly bought so many shit coins.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, how do I maximize this thing? Like, I don't care. Like, YouTube tells me this, I will buy that stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
but it gave me that experience, and so when I started, when I came across the idea of co-living, I met up with one of my friends. We're like, he's also very into deep conversations, and he was the one who actually got me into crypto back in March of 2020. He was like, Mark, like there's a halving event happening. I was like, okay, like the halving event, like, oh, this is what caused the previous bull runs. Okay, if this is true, I experienced like how I tripled my money like towards the end of it. The
Hmm.
earlier I get in, the crazy it's going to be. So like that friend kind of like got me back into it, and it was purely just an investment for me. I
Yes.
just put in the money, I and I just did my own thing, and I wasn't really so much into like Bitcoin and Ethereum. It was just I just wanted to make some money and all good.
Yes. 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 Can I
But then
ask you a quick question before you
yeah,
continue on that?
yeah.
Um, I just want to know for you the difference between 2017 and 2020.
Yeah,
What was the first coin you ever bought and why in 2017?
I think it was Ripple.
Ripple, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Ripple went. Oh man, yeah, Ripple. I had a buddy who made like 100 grand just on like
Wow.
$1,000. Yeah, from that Ripple move because he just got in at the right time and he sold it. You know what I mean? So and these are the kinds of stories that make people FOMO in at the
100%.
same time, right? Because crypto is not a, as you learned, it's not a get rich quick scam. You know what I mean? It's a real economy with real potential, real asset, real money. Um, so jumping back to 2020, what was the first coin you got in 2020? Once you're a little bit more knowledgeable, you've been through the rough patch of 2017, 2018. What
Bitcoin.
did you get into? Bitcoin?
Yeah.
The safer move, right?
Yeah. No, like when I got into it, like I graduated college in May of 2020.
Yeah.
I remember in February, like I was February of 2020, I was thinking about getting a loan just to keep on being able to keep on partying because the level there was absolutely because I had like in third year of college I joined the cycling team, so I barely partied. Then the first semester of fourth year I was in Australia and Brazil, and then I had that one last semester which was the only semester I was 21 in the US.
Yes.
And so, it was my last semester with all these people, and I guess I just went with the collective, which, like, again, I'm making it seem like the collective is this bad thing. And no, of course not. Like, uh, such a great time, but I was like very poor. Like, I barely had any money. And then I actually, even though I'm not American, actually, one step back. So COVID started. I went back home, and I was like, I think this happened for a lot of people. A lot of people started to think about how they could make money from this opportunity, this crash in the market. So suddenly, with so much free time, I created a group chat with some of the people that were in the similar stage as I was, like interested in financial literacy, financial freedom, all these things. And we
Nice.
started like getting very deep into stocks. We started like reading books together and discussing them, Rich Dad Poor Dad, The Intelligent Investor, like all these classics. And then, one of them was like, you should get into crypto. At first, I was like, I'm never going to touch that again. He then convinced me to get into Bitcoin because of the halving. I was like, okay, if this is true, it's going to be crazy. And so at first, it was like just a part of my portfolio compared to other stocks. So, and for me, it was like this super risky thing. But actually, the more I got into Web3 or crypto, the more it just seemed like for me, maybe I'm biased, naive, call me whatever. I think Bitcoin is inevitable. I think Bitcoin, if you have the long time horizon, I think it's the best opportunity you're ever going to have in your life. And
I
so
agree.
for me, like it was a no-brainer to then invest half of my salary into cryptos, majority. Yeah, like I really was like, this is it. Like this is it.
You went all in, my bro.
Yeah,
Wow.
crazy.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah,
Nice.
but actually there's the sad story behind it as well. But as you start like reducing your risk levels and you start thinking like, oh, Bitcoin is this like super safe thing, then you start jumping into all these other things. And I feel like our brains are just a little bit like we like to tell ourselves excuses. It's all good.
Yeah.
And actually what happened to me is that I got extremely greedy. I was making a lot of money. I had turned 10,000 euros into 150K, which was
Beautiful.
crazy for a
Amazing.
23.
Yeah,
and
amazing.
and so I still felt like there's still like Bitcoin is at least going to get to like 100K, like for sure. So when I started having a lot of business expenses, I was like, I don't want to sell my cryptos. Like, there's a huge opportunity cost here. So I
Yeah.
started borrowing loans on Nexo, using my
Yes.
crypto as collateral.
Right.
And so over the last, first half of 2022, it dipped from 150K to 80K, then to 60K. And then back in June, when the big crash happened, down to
Yeah.
20K,
Ooh.
I got completely liquidated. And I went
Oh
from
no.
60K to 2K. You
Ugh.
know, and honestly, now looking back, I'm extremely, I wouldn't say happy, but grateful, because first of all, the amount of money I made on crypto gave me that confidence to take the leap, right?
Hmm.
It was like what's the worst that's gonna happen? If it doesn't work out, I have all this money. Like I'm chilling.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, once I lost it, it made me hungrier. It gave me this experience that I would not want to have once I have employees, a family, a mortgage, all these different things. So it came with amazing learnings. And so, anyways, that's the whole crypto story. In
Right.
October, November of 2021, well, that's when like really like the NFT hype was really at kind of its peak, or about to get to its peak. And
Yeah.
I was like, for the first months, like this is bullshit. Like what is this? But I always just have this rule. It's like, if so many people are talking about something, there's a reason behind it. So
Yes.
instead of just saying no, like this is dumb, without even really knowing anything about it, just spend 2 hours, do a little bit of research, and let's see what happens. Like, let's see where it takes you, and then you can have
Yeah.
a real opinion on it. And it absolutely blew my mind. Like, previously, I was just investing to crypto, like, and forgetting about it. There, I was like, wow, like this is insane.
Right.
Like, and what I loved most about it was that Web3 had community at its core, right?
Yes.
I mean, I'm assuming whoever is listening to this probably knows a lot about Web3 and all these different things, but at the end of the day, what we've realized is that a lot of the networks, a lot of the communities, a lot of the platforms are so valuable, not just because of YouTube or the creators in it, but because of all the users that are making this platform valuable in the first place. You know what I mean? And it's not
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
one is more important, this one is, the users are more important. No, it's that everybody is important in this. And what I
Hmm.
love about Web3 is that it's democratizing, it's turning users into owners, and it's democratizing the ownership and value creation to some extent of all the different parties involved in this thing. And
Yeah.
so, why do I love Web3, and how does it tie into co-living, which was the original question you asked me 28 hours ago? Is that co-living is extremely valuable. One, like, is going to be different from another because of the people in it. Like, I'm seeing so many co-livings, and the majority have pretty much the same spaces, the same amenities, all these different things. But what makes you want to join one community over another? It's the people. One other thing that I love about the co-living industry is that instead of having a top-down approach, there's a lot of a bottom-up approach. Like, a top-down approach is a hotel, very common, says on Saturday we're gonna have mimosas, brunch and mimosas. Okay,
Hmm.
cool. You join or you don't join. In a co-living, however, we talk a lot about the bottom-up approach, in which you empower your community to co-create experiences, community gatherings, and all these different things. So, like, this got me thinking. I was like, wait, if Charisma succeeds, is this just because I did everything right, or because the people in my community are making the community valuable in the first place, and even
Yeah.
compensating to the entire, um, yeah. So it for me, Web3 is a way to compensate in a fair way everyone's contributions to a community, which is something you're not able to do with Web2, where all
Right.
of
No, you're
the value
not.
literally just accrues to these centralized, massive organizations, which are literally just ran by a bunch of people.
Yes. Yeah, no, I completely
So
agree.
for me, there was so many synergies that I was like there's something that needs to be done here. And at the same time, just to add the last piece of it, I feel like we are really moving towards this digital world. I think Web3 is creating some very powerful online communities, but I think there's nothing more powerful and meaningful than in real life interactions. So I think there needs to be a way to bridge that gap to some extent, and I really believe that with co-living and yeah, you can really accomplish that.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that. You saw the power of community firsthand when you started this, and I it's an amazing experience to have, and you're lucky to have it because a lot of communities fail. You know what I mean? In the
Why do you
sense, in why do I think? I
yeah,
think because a lot of a lot of the core of those projects, the main core of those projects, don't provide long-term value. As for example, like you're doing, yours is like a you can do this for your whole life for all kinds of different people, right? But some of these communities that come specifically into Web3, a lot of them are scams. A lot of them are in it for just show face, make a FOMO, and then in and out. So that's
and I
why learning. Yes, go ahead.
it's not easy to build a community.
No, it's not.
Easy. It's not
No,
easy.
no, not a real one, right? And that's why when you do find that real community like you did, um, it's a very special moment. It's a very special experience because it's real. You get that reality. The people are real. They really genuinely want to be in there and help. There's a
Yeah.
need. So you found that gap. You
Yeah.
found the gap that was needed and you're filling it, which is an amazing thing task to do. Congratulations on that.
And I think, if you really manage to build a loyal community, I think it's one of the biggest competitive advantages you can possibly have.
Hmm.
Because you make a nice product and somebody can copy it, someone can make it better, and the
Right.
customers are just going to go to the better one. But I always like to give the example of, let's take two rival sports teams, right? In this case, let's take FC Barcelona and Real Madrid.
Yes.
Even even if Madrid wins every game, has the best players, the best stadiums, the best benefits, whatever, FC Barcelona fans are still going to be FC Barcelona fans.
Right.
And you cannot copy a community. You can't.
Yeah.
So even though Charisma is still so young, like I feel like I'm still in the takeoff lane. Like I feel like I haven't even taken off yet.
Yeah.
I think we have done everything right up to this point to really build the roots, you know,
Yeah.
um, starting with having a very clear philosophy, shared vision of the world, right? Like a clear concept of what we stand for, what values we have, which is going to get us to that second level of community that I talked about earlier, which is not just circumstantial, but more like form of identity, ideology. I think that's where you can really scale community, right?
Hmm.
I like, for example, there's this one Spanish clothing brand, uh, and they sell adventure, right? You go on their Instagram, they have like, I don't know if it's 300 or 400K followers. Like,
Wow.
there's barely any clothing in it. It's just surf trips, like living the
Yeah.
dream. And I see someone wearing that hood in the street, and I'm like, I don't know you, but I know we have some things in common here,
Right.
right? So I think it's hard to, and I'm seeing this with many other co-living brands, they start first with the real estate and then they try to add the community on top. But I don't think that's the way. You first need
Hmm.
the community and then you
Yeah.
build things on top of it. I think on top of it, you need, uh, and this might just believe is that we also talked about how people nowadays want to have a face that they can relate to, like a face behind the brand you know
Yes.
and so that's why, like, very recently actually I started going all into YouTube and TikTok with a similar approach to that of, like, for example, Gary Vee or Alex with Vain Air X, and Alex Hormozy with acquisition.com, they
Hmm.
have their own personal brand, and they share their own lessons, their stories, their experiences, and then they also have a business on the side. So with
Yes.
TikTok and YouTube, it's kind of more that approach of sharing the journey, what I'm doing, everything that's happening in the business, um,
Yeah.
hoping that people can really establish that connection. And then
Yes.
obviously you need to want to really build community.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. You know what? You got ahead of me a little bit on that because I was gonna ask you specifically about your TikTok because I was checking out some of your links, and I happened to run into a couple of your TikToks, and they were really good. I like the whole. You're kind of like showing the back end of of what's in, your charisma's in the front, but you're showing the back end of what you're doing, what motivating you, what carries you to motivate you to keep going with this beautiful charisma project that you have. So um, I wanted to ask you one specific question since I did check out your some of your links on TikTok, which are really good. I recommend everybody check them out. Links will be down below. Um, what is rent to rent?
Rent to rent is the model I'm following at the moment, to build and scale the the real estate side of co-living.
Right,
And it's basically renting property from someone else, creating an agreement to then be able to sublet the individual rooms to other people.
okay,
And actually, if I wasn't doing co-living or anything of this sort, I would probably use that model to create another income stream in my life,
right,
because you know as an capex, as an individual investment, you have to pay the deposit, and most of the time in my case I'm using properties that are like already like reformed, so they only need, but they're empty inside, so they only need the furniture, the beds, like all
yeah,
these,
they're ready to go.
they're ready to go. You just need
Yeah,
to like add your soul and touches to it, basically, which, you know if you keep it lean, you can do something with, I mean, depends on how lean you want to go, but like something between 3 to 5 rooms, you can get something below 10K if you go really lean.
yes,
And so with 10K, you suddenly have this property that you didn't even have to purchase in the first place. And then depending on the services you add on top of it, you can really increase the margin, right?
right,
Because if you pimp it out with beautiful interior design, beautiful furniture, you add a curation like I'm doing right now, you know, you're going to be living with X, Y, or Z people. You maybe even add experiences and events onto that thing. Suddenly, like this thing that, if you were just to rent it on its own, would probably not be that expensive. Suddenly you're turning into a much more valuable product at the end of
right,
the day.
yeah.
So that for now is the way forward. At least for Charisma, that's the model we're following, the rent to rent model. Highly recommend anyone to look into it. Easier said than done, because you do have to find someone who would be willing to do that sort of,
Rent it, sublet it, yeah.
that for then you to sublet it to other people, which can be a little bit risky and in their eyes. But yeah,
Yeah, but
that
you know what? No risk, no reward, right?
exactly. There is no fun.
Now, I was just kind of looking at your background there, and I see that you have a nice giant whiteboard.
Secret here. Top secret.
Yes, yes. Don't worry, we'll buzz it out. We'll blur it out.
Right.
The sauce is there. The magic sauce is in there. Um, how much time? How do you balance yourself? Because having your own business, especially when it's Web3 related, where you can go anywhere and do anything, especially with charisma, where you have so many different things, so many different aspects going on. I'm sure you're dealing with meetings and people all day long, every week, I'm sure. How do you balance yourself out? Now I was checking out, like, again, your TikTok. I see that you do a little bit of yoga and stretching. Um, give me your schedule of the day. What does a day of Mark look like?
For sure. So the mornings are sacred for me. Uh, I normally try to wait, like if you do the 5 a.m. club and all these stuff,
Mm,
works, like for sure. I'm sure there's benefits, but I think you just need to find the thing that works best for you. I normally just wake up around 7:30, most of the time, 8 a.m. And then I take my sweet ass time to do some workout, to do some stretching, some yoga, or meditation. I would even say, like, at the beginning when I've been working out since I went to Boston and since I was 15.
Hmm.
Maybe at the time the inspiration was a lot more driven by the opposite sex wanting to impress other. Uh, yeah,
As it normally is. Yep, yep.
yeah.
All good with that. Yep.
Now I would say that the biggest reason for doing that is purely my mental health. I'm not talking like avoiding anxiety and depression, which of course it helps with that and all these avoiding it. And but I would say more it's my attention, it's my focus, it's like really being able to, you know, do things. And you know, I have to say that I work a lot. My mind is constantly thinking about charisma, 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 charisma. You know, depending on who you ask, maybe, my I told my aunt about this and she's like, Mike, I don't know if this is healthy for you. I don't know if this is
Hmm.
the right thing. Maybe you should, I don't know if you can sustain this, but I read Think and Grow Rich.
Yes, great book.
The one takeaway that I had from that book is that, out of all the people, which here we're talking Rockefeller, Thomas Edison, like all these huge people from the past, what they all had in common was the mentality, which
Hmm.
in this case was a very obsessive mentality, right? It maybe has a bad connotation, but it's basically the law of attraction on steroids to some extent, right?
Right. Yeah.
When you obsess over a specific thing, many of the thoughts you're going to have are going to be at like around that specific thing. And when you spend so much time without it, it's like involuntarily, like it just happens, right? Like sometimes
Yes.
it takes me time to fall asleep because I'm just thinking about stuff, the thing I'm going to do tomorrow and all these different things. Like, I think that's great. When you on top of it love what you do, it's so easy just to keep on working, 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 working. It's people say like fuck the 9 to 5, but I'm doing like 9 to 9 p.m. like.
Yeah.
And so I think what allows me to keep on going is, one, I've now started introducing hobbies because
Yes. Important.
it's like such a simple thing, hobby, but if you're a young person, like most of the people I know, their life consists of either work or school,
Hmm.
seeing friends, which obviously is amazing, super important, and going out.
Yes.
I was like, what? There's no real personal hobby there, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
whenever I have a chance to go play golf with my family, I go. I've now gotten into jujitsu and tennis.
Nice.
Um, I'm just like trying a bunch of stuff. I did like one bachata class. Uh,
Right on. Right on.
the teacher, like, I don't think I was very good for it, but the teacher wasn't very impressed, I have to say.
Yeah.
And then I think it's important to kind of have systems in place that help you be the most effective possible. So, two things that I do that now come to mind is, one, the Pomodoro method, which I learned from someone in my community, which is basically working in sprints. So basically, you work in sprints of 50 minutes, or if you want to do 30 minutes, that works too. But basically, the way it works is that at the beginning of that, you decide what do I want to have accomplished by the end of these 30 or 50 minutes. And
Right.
it doesn't work like saying financial report. No, it's, for example, like it has to be very measurable and specific.
Right.
Um, and list out all the capex expenses. Like that's very specific. By the end of those 30 minutes, if you have listed out all the potential initial investments you're going to have, just the list, maybe not the numbers. Maybe
Yeah.
another task would be figure out the initial, like how much it's going to cost for the furniture, whatever. Very specific.
Hmm.
When you start breaking it down into smaller things, it becomes much more attainable, much easier, right? And so then after those 30 minutes, you take a little break. many times what would happen often was that I just wanted to keep on going. Sometimes I would be like feeling like my head is pumping, like it's like, oh, like I'm a little bit overwhelmed. And then you're like, Mark, you need to keep going, just focus. And then all that you do is just burn out, like, so it's
Yeah.
important to listen to yourself and to give yourself breaks in between. And then finally, the other thing I do is um, I have started now using the PARA method. Uh, PARA stands for Projects, Areas, Resources, and Archives. And basically, it's a way to organize my life. So, for example, areas are different buckets of my life that have like continuous, just never stop. So it's like, for example, finances, sales, marketing,
Hmm.
legal,
Right.
like general areas of my life. And then in the projects, I have, you know, the things that are currently going on. So, for example, right here, there's a lot of one of my projects is the new update of the website. Another project is maybe episode 3 of my YouTube channel. Another one is launching the first co-living space, right? Like opening up the first property. So then you
Right.
have all these different projects. You have a clear understanding of all the things that are happening at the moment. And then within that, you then create the different tasks that you need to do. But then through the Pomodoro and all these different things that I then break down into smaller things.
Yes.
So, I think the breaking down of things is so incredibly important, because then otherwise it's just so overwhelming to be like, imagine on my to-do list, I just wrote down launch property, upgrade website,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and I'll be like, oh my God, like that's, I haven't even checked it off yet. Like it's been weeks.
Yeah. 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 I hear. Trust me, I know all about that. I hear you very well. It makes a lot of sense. Um, so you get out of your zone with extracurricular activities like golf, jiu-jitsu, which by the way, I love martial art. I'm a martial artist as well, so I keep going with it. It's an amazing form of life, actually. The martial arts, it really is. um and I see you have a little ukulele there in the background, a little mini
Actually, this is
guitar.
my sister's bedroom here.
Okay,
This is
okay, okay.
my
Yo, that's okay. Yes, yes.
So
I
she just started college. I moved back into my parents' home, and before she left, I was always in the living room, and everybody would always just be like super upset because I'm always on calls and like I talk very loud. And now that she's gone, I'm like I have my space here, and like
Beautiful,
so I have my
beautiful.
own room, but this is my sister's.
Yes, yes. But you know what? That's the beauty of Web3. You can do it anywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I
It,
mean?
anyway,
And talking about specifically about that, um, with your charisma project and everything involved with it, obviously it involves digital nomad, right?
yeah,
Now, a lot of people don't know what digital nomads is. I mean, it's not a well-known term for the regular people that are not online or in the communities and stuff like that. For the people that don't know what a specifically digital nomad is, can you explain that?
100%. Digital nomad is someone who works from his or her own laptop, works online, and is constantly traveling the world while working on the road, basically.
Okay.
That's a digital nomad. Digital nomad is a remote worker, but not every remote worker is a digital nomad, right?
Uh-huh. Okay. Yes.
That's a very important distinguishment we have to make. So right now, at the current, my lifestyle right now is not that of a digital nomad. I'm a remote worker, and I like to consider myself a location independent entrepreneur, professional, whatever you want to call it. But there's people that are constantly on the road. They stay like 1 week here, 1 week there, or like multiple months at a time. And the interesting thing is that there's also different levels of digital nomads.
Right.
There's the there's actually three. It's the digital nomad, which normally stays is like more, moves very, like often. Maybe it stays in a few weeks, up to 1 month,
Right.
sometimes just a couple of months. Then we have the slow man, which is a slow nomad, which is more looking to immerse him or herself into specific culture, so tends to go all anywhere from like 2 3 months up to a year approximately. So like really kind of settles in one destination and then moves on to the next one. And then you have the explorer expat as well,
Okay.
uh, which is not that common. I did a At the very beginning of my journey, I did like a feasibility study, market study, and those were the terms I came up with, and then, like
Hmm.
that consultants told me. So because not a lot of people talk about explorer expats. Maybe that's just the
Yeah.
people, but these are people that stay in like each location around like 1 year on average and then move. And normally they work more for like a different company and they get like moved to different locations. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much what a digital nomad is.
Okay. Very cool. Thank you for that explanation. There's a lot of terms that people don't really
Yeah.
know. So we'll,
And
go
fun
ahead.
fact, actually, it is expected that by 2035, there's going to be 1 billion digital nomads and remote workers.
My goodness.
That's a lot. And
Yeah.
that is something that makes me even more bullish on co-living, because co-living is the best form of accommodation. If you look back to the definition, flexibility, convenience, community, that's what the digital nomads and the remote workers need. They
Yes.
need to be able to come to a place, come and go whenever they need.
Yeah.
They are normally just living off of their backpack, so they can't carry with themselves furniture. They can't buy furniture every time they go to a new place. So
Hmm.
everything needs to be fully furnished. The space should be some sort of service. And then finally, when you're constantly going to new places, it can be so daunting and overwhelming to be constantly having to meet new people. But if you
Yes.
come to a place that already has curated the people for you,
Yeah.
you
It's
see,
awesome.
see where
It's a beautiful system. And on that point specifically, talking about the future of digital nomads, where do you see charisma within the next 5 years?
okay.
Or
So
what's your goal? Yes.
what's my vision?
Yes.
Oh, so I my dream is to be is to create the next Soho House. Um, for whoever isn't familiar with Soho House is pretty much a social club. If you look at it very objectively, it's pretty much a hotel chain with restaurants and all tied up under a membership,
Hmm.
right? And
Right.
so for me, I dream of one day having these massive buildings, which are going to have like, you know, um, co-living spaces, big co-working space, so that not just foreigners and digital nomads can come, but also local people, that are also creators, entrepreneurs.
Right.
We love to have like a gym and a mindfulness meditation area, a bar that can turn into like a place where we can have like speaking engagements and like techno parties and like have the best time ever.
Awesome.
And when I go to Soho House, the reason people want to be a member of that, which by the way, there's also a curation there, it's because of the people that are there.
Hmm.
It's rooted in the sense of belonging, feeling like you're part of something, and being surrounded by like-minded people
Yeah.
who think and see the world the same way you do, right?
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
so
Yes.
a lot of that, either you can call it either exclusivity or curation, whatever you want, right? I dream of having that one day. But to get there, it's so complicated. It's like, how do I get, first of all, this whole building? How do I curate so many people at the same time? And so the way I'm going about this and the roadmap I kind of see is that first, I'm starting with these smaller scale co-living spaces. I'm talking 4 to 5 spaces, 4 to 5 bedrooms per space, right? And so this is kind of the first entry point into the community at the moment.
Yes.
I'm
Okay.
also on the side in parallel growing like my own like local community of creators and entrepreneurs. I call the people in my community creators with a K as
Yeah.
well.
That's cool.
Uh,
Yes, I saw
it's
that.
a mastermind group with local entrepreneurs and creators. On the
Yes.
side, I'm building like the real estate, and the reason I decided to start with co-living is because instead of like, for example, a co-working space, is because one, people need somewhere to live.
Yeah.
It's much more of a necessity. And at the same time, it's much easier for me to curate the space and to guarantee that you're going to be living with 4 to 5 people that are going to be, you know, adding a lot of value and enriching you in so many different ways, right?
Yes.
Even if I decided now to start with a co-living space that has like 20 beds and I only fill it up with 15, I don't want to, have to sacrifice the alignment or the quality of the people just to
Phil.
fill it up and try to make some money. So as
Yeah.
we start adding some of these spaces, which by the way, we're opening up the first space in 2 months, and we already have a wait list of 71 people, which is
Wow.
mind blowing.
That's
So,
awesome.
you know,
Congratulations. Amazing.
before we get to the bigger building, which is what I dream about, by the time we have like 30, 50 beds, something around that, I want to have the first co-working space slash social club. And so by that time, I really believe that, we're going to have a lot more leads, a lot of people like interested in the space. And I want to have one central point where people from the different co-living spaces can unite together.
Yeah.
Obviously, at the same time, we're also going to have like weekly experiences. We've already been experimenting with that. We had like one crazy uh, techno party on a beach house with 150 people. We've been organizing like 2 networking events. We have done 4 trips to Fuerteventura, Gran Canaria, Croatia, and Morocco. To start
Awesome.
just experimenting with all these different things,
Yeah.
uh, start building the brand, the community, which is why we, before even launching, we just reached 1K on Instagram. We have the wait list, which is absolutely crazy. And then as we start growing all these different things, by the roughly, I'm making up these numbers up, but by the time we have 100 beds, I want to then build the bigger building. By the
Okay.
time we're going to have credibility, we're going to have the numbers to be even filling up the space. And for me, the time horizon is very long. Like, I'm in no rush to get there. I want to do things right now as good as I possibly can. And I'm aware that, the people are going to make the difference. You
Hmm.
know, like
Yeah.
that's like, there's a lot of people with a lot of money that can like get these buildings off the ground and do all these things. But if you curate the right people and you really create that sense of community and you provide a space where people come and meet people, they can spend the whole day there. And on top of it, there's many of these spaces around the world.
Hmm.
There's a lot of value in that. And
Right.
so the reason it's going to be a social club is because as a member of this community, you have access to the different co-living spaces around the world, to the different co-workings, to the different, bigger building, just like Soho House does, which also has buildings all over the world.
Yes.
On top of it, I want to add 2 things, which I think are very much going to add to the overall sense of community. One, I want to have one department of the business. And again, I'm just dreaming and I'm just
Of course,
sharing.
man. I'd love it. Yeah.
I still need to walk the talk. This is all talk. This is
Of
all talk.
course. That's
But I
how it
want a
starts.
department which is purely dedicated to experiences. And I'm not talking, oh, let's do an event here, like let's do like, no, I want to like create one of a kind experiences. Like
Mm.
for me, charisma is a white canvas where I can just express myself and just do projects that are fun, that are meaningful, and that are providing value to people.
Yeah.
I think shared experiences really bring people together. And so the third thing I would love to add, a part of the real estate, the experiences, is what I call charisma labs. And this is the more experimental side of charisma, which is
Okay.
going to be the one that's going to be most involved with Web3,
Right.
right? And so what I see here is that, you know, by the time we add this, we will have already implemented Web3. And let me take even a step back to share with you how Web3 even fits into charisma and the overall vision, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
For me, first of all, the whole membership idea and like being a member of the community, I think there's no better way to do it than through NFTs, right? You can create different tiers of that kind. NFTs allow you to kind of segment your community, on different levels of loyalty, right? Because there's some people that may just want to stay and that's it. Some other ones who may actually be very involved and want to have that, maybe that higher membership that gives that person more benefits and all these different things. On top of it, NFTs allow you to own your community, right? If
Yes.
Instagram now goes down, if all the different platforms go down, my community may disappear with it as well. And so now with NFTs, you own your community. You
Yes.
know exactly who is a member of your community,
Yeah.
value they're adding to the overall system. So that's really cool. Another thing I would love to include as well is that, at the moment, I got a loan from my grandpa to kick off the two first spaces. Eventually, we're going to have to, raise a little bit of money. But I hope that if we do our community efforts right, maybe I can tap into my community to crowdfund the future spaces. And
Yeah.
there, suddenly, I can return that value not only by having stake in the piece of the pie,
Hmm.
but maybe I can give people revenue share, like a share of future earnings of Charisma,
Right.
which maybe at the beginning is very low, but as the pie increases,
Compounds.
it compounds, and then suddenly you're like, whoa, I own this. I'm going to now, be incentivized to reshare Charisma stories, to add more value, to tell it to my friends, and so suddenly, if Charisma wins, everybody wins, and that's how
Yeah.
I want to approach this thing. And so finally, the reason I'm so excited about Charisma Labs is because I don't want it just to be co-living, co-working. I want to, like, do whatever excites me and do
Yeah.
this together as a community. So one thing I imagine is that, if you own these certain NFTs, you can vote on certain projects that we can develop as a community. Maybe that part can even be a DAO. I don't even know. I haven't even gotten that far. But, like, oh, should we create this or that? Oh, let's do a glamping. Let's do a
Hmm.
glamping development. I love glamping, for example.
Yeah.
And then, the people can then crowdfund the spaces, and then people can also add value, and like people then have like the revenue share, like people have real skin in the game with all these things. And I think that's
Hmm.
a great way to even bring your community closer together,
It
because
is.
if you have the shared philosophy, if you have, I think, a face behind the brand that people can relate to, if you have skin in the game, like
Oh yeah.
and shared experiences and in real life, connections, I think that's the recipe for an unstoppable community. And so, again, maybe I'm naive, maybe I'm too young. I don't know, but I see all these co-living spaces pop up. They're coming like crazy. I'm not even worried. Like, I think they're helping with the education on the overall system. On top
Hmm.
of it, I think there's going to be enough demand for it with the 1 billion people that we're going to see. But at the same time, it goes back to what we said earlier. If you compete with community, you're unstoppable. There's nothing, like, nobody can copy you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
Definitely.
and so another one important thing I wanted to point out is that Charisma is not a Web3 core living. We are leveraging Web3 as a tool to some extent, right? It's
Hmm.
not like we're not putting it all over the place. Like, here we're Web3. Like, if you go on actually on our website, we're just mentioning co-ownership. We're not even throwing people the word NFT and any of this thing. We're
Hmm.
focusing solely on the utility that this brings,
Yes. As you
because
should.
that's the moment where we're really going to bring this into mainstream adoption. If we keep on talking with these crazy terminology and keep on throwing blockchain, it doesn't matter. Like, when you explain to people what Facebook is, Uber is, you don't talk about how the internet works. Nobody
Yeah.
knows how the internet works. It doesn't matter. What value is it giving to people? That's the thing that really matters. So on top of it, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'm sitting on the sidelines at the moment and learning from other projects, slowly, like introducing it into my community, educating people on
Smart
it.
move.
I've like done like 2 blog posts on it. One was, what is Web3 and why you should care, and 3 ways in which you can supercharge your community with Web3. I have a Substack as well. You can find it on my LinkedIn as well. Um, and so right now I'm just in education mode. And so at the same time, I'm like, but it's going to be a little bit unfair if I release all this Web3 later on, because the first people that join the community are going to miss out on all the like value that they're going to get. So instead, what I'm doing is I just created this 100 I call it the first 100 collection.
Okay.
So all the first 100 residents of the community are going to get for free an NFT, which is going to give them lifetime access forever to the community. Because
Wow.
that's to be access to be able to access all the different spaces, you have
Yes.
to be a member of the community.
Yeah.
That's a
Right.
must. And
Right.
so on one side, I'm increasing the value of my offer early on, and I'm also in a very simple way introducing the idea of NFTs from the very beginning without complicating it, without having to think about tokenomics, about the benefits that they're going to be getting. This is just like, hey, take this is for you. And then later on, I already know that, for example, lifetime access is a for sure, but maybe later on, I can add partnerships like discounts, and maybe it gives you access to this or
Oh
this.
yeah,
I
for sure.
don't know.
For sure.
I don't know right now. I don't know right
Yeah.
now. This is just a way to kind of put it on pause, letting me focus on the things that really matter, which is now
Yeah.
having the best product I possibly can, giving people the best possible experience, and building a dope community. And if I put too many things on my plate and I'll start playing around with Web3, and like I may confuse people, I may stretch myself too thin. So I think it's important to stay focused and do one thing at a time.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah. And you said it very well. It's all about community. And right now, you have a white canvas. You have a blank canvas, and you can do whatever you like. So you're doing the right thing, taking it day by day, taking your time, doing it properly, doing correctly. So that is definitely something that's going to take you long ways, Mark. I really believe so. I love the idea. I've checked out the website. I love the idea. I can't wait to someday go, because I really want to go to Barcelona, and I want to experience the co-living thing, and I think it'd be really cool. And I definitely see a huge future in it, specifically with the whole nomad situation, and how the world is right now. Um, so first of all, I want to again just remind everybody that this is your 2-year anniversary of the concept of this idea.
Yeah.
And look how far you've come already, with all breaks in between and everything. It's amazing. I love the idea. Is there anything you would like the viewers to know? Any specifics, upcoming events, or anything that's going on specifically with Charisma?
I would say that if you want to follow the journey, I think where you're going to get the most value and the most transparency is going to be on YouTube channel. Right now, I may change the name. I don't know, but I won't change it in the next few weeks. No worries. It's Marc side score. What do you call it? Like the
Slash.
slash the charisma journey. Um,
Okay, right on.
so
We will link it down below. Don't worry, we will
yeah,
link it down
yeah.
below.
Right now, even though I want to conquer the whole world, right now I'm just focused on Barcelona. So if you're ever in Barcelona, you can hit me up and everything. And I would just finish up with saying that, if like if you have a dream, if you wanna do something with your life, like don't wait for the perfect idea. Just start with something. Start with something. Let see where your curiosity takes you. Um, and don't expect to have the perfect idea just come up one day and like knocking on the door and like, hey, I'm here. If you really want it, go for it. And just be patient. Like, I think exactly a lot of these projects, they just fail because they're just rushing things. And and I think that, if you do something you love, like it's not about the destination, but about falling in love, with that process, enjoying every single day. And yeah, so I've also come this way because of the people I have in my life, because of so many people that have been helping out in the background, like social media. I have a friend who's helping out, I had a
Nice.
summer intern. I have so many people I always rely on, even for emotional support. So, I want to make it very clear that, this is not a one-man gang, like you said, a one-man show.
Yes.
This has really been a collective effort, and I think I'm just extremely grateful to be here, to be speaking here. This is like I've already made it. Like I'm already making it. Like just
Yes.
moments like these, like I'm happy. I can die in peace. But of course, I just wanna keep going.
I love that. I love that. I love the energy. I love the charisma that you have.
Thank you.
And I before we go, I just like to say thank you for your time. I know that you're very busy, and I really appreciate it. Guys, all the links will be down below. Check Mark out. Check out Charisma. Check out his TikToks. They're very interesting. Very lot. I got a lot of good information in
A
there
little
as
cringe,
well.
but
What's
it's
that?
yeah, a little cringe, but
No, I
I
didn't
think
find no cringe at all. I liked it. I liked it. I'm a follower as well now. I'm following you, so I will be checking out your journey. All right, I'm gonna
thank
keep
you.
an eye on you, man,
Yeah,
for sure,
yeah,
for sure. I hope to have you back sometime as well and get some updates on what's going on.
yeah.
Anytime you want, just let me know. We can chat. If you want to ever come on, just chat specifically crypto. We can definitely do that.
Yeah.
I love your crypto story as well. It was very, very cool. We're definitely on the same page on that, Mark. Besides that, guys, this interview was brought to you by Meta Marketing International and partner affiliate with MEXC Global. Links down below. And I just like to say once again, the whole the whole project is very cool. I see a huge future in the industry that the gap that you found that you're getting into, and that you're doing it right, taking your time. I think it's really cool, Mark. I can't wait to see what's next. And thank you again for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Herman.
We'll
Thank you.
definitely have you again. Hasta luego. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.